If our everyday movements are based on the color of the stock market, I guess everyone is in a stop right now because it's all red. Everything is red. The S&P 500 has been down by more than 18% this year. The KLCI is in the same conundrum, and better still, we're calling an election in Malaysia in the middle of monsoon. How worse can it possibly get? And if you're feeling down because of all these red market conditions, don't worry, this video is for you because I'm going to show you 5 tips on how to overcome this emotional anxiety. What are the things you can do to help prepare yourself for the eventual bull run coming in the future? And if you stay to the end of the video, I'm going to show you one bonus tip on what I do personally to help me overcome all this anxiety as well. So as usual, as a disclaimer, this video is only for educational purposes only and should not be seen as a buy or sell recommendation. So please do seek license advice if you do require it. So tip number 1, ignore your trading screen. Now you'll be surprised. I mean, doesn't Bloomberg every day flashes out the prices of all these companies that represent the stock market? But let me ask you in another manner. When you're looking at the trading screen, what are the parameters or data that you see? It's just price points, price action movements, trading volume, that's about it. Does it really represent the underlying fundamentals of a business? So if the stock price crashed by 90%, does it mean that the business that this stock actually represents, the profit actually dropped by 90%? Is there a direct correlation? See what I'm getting at right now? Therefore, by looking at the trading screen, you are actually very compelled to follow the sentiment of the market. And when that happens, you kind of like go into this zone where you tend to ignore all the underlying businesses behind the stocks that you're actually buying. And therefore, this emotional bias of making losses, especially paper losses if you're already in position, right, will actually cause you to get more anxious to want to sell this off because you see everybody is running for the gates, and you tend to forget that the businesses that are behind those tickers are actually still okay. I mean, some may have even increased in sales, some definitely would have gone into some losses, but a 90% share price drop, do you think it really represents a 90% drop in their net profits? So think about that for a while, and you know, one way to help you insulate is actually ignoring your trading screen. Tip number 2, filter out all the noise. Now, it's not easy, I know. CNN has 24 hours news, you know, Bloomberg constantly feeds you all this 24/7 kind of data set. And you can be very easily, I mean, myself included, can be very easily paralyzed by all this headline news that's coming out. And it doesn't help that is negative, you know. Fed only cares about inflation, that's bad news for you. US is headed for another recession, inflation rates are high, layoffs are imminent, you know. And you have to remember that the KPI, or how is a news portal or a media company benchmark, they're benchmarked against traffic, how much traffic they can drive to their portal. And how do you drive traffic? You have to sensationalize your news. Now remember, sensational news does not necessarily carry factual or even important information that you can act upon. Yes, it may be headlines, but what are the data sets that actually support that headlines? That requires a little bit more digging, that requires a little bit more thinking. And if you imagine your position as a journalist, you have to rush your papers out or your headline news articles out as fast as possible. You know, it's just churn, churn, churn. Whereas if you see those like column pieces whatsoever, do you realize that it takes months or even sometimes even years to actually research the materials needed for one very good column or an expose before they actually publish it? But if you're going to base your investment decisions on news that is being churned out day in, day out, give a thought about how much time is being used to research that. And if you think about how little research they have, it may not be the journalist's fault. They're just, you know, under a tremendous deadline pressures. But if you you think about the time they used to research this, does it really warrant your time to actually use that as an actionable item? So there you go, tip number 2, filter out the noise. So tip number 3, and I love this tip because it's very easily applicable and it's also fun to do, which is go out and observe. Now, I know some of you may still be conscious about COVID. You know, I think with just more precautions like wearing a double layer mask, washing your hands more often, it's actually good because you go out and have more vitamin D. Now, when you start go out and observing, what do I want you to observe? I want you to observe things that are constant. Are people still eating the same eateries as they've done before COVID and after COVID? Are resorts still filled to the brim with people, or are they, like, you know, having very minimal traffic? Go talk to your friends where they're traveling for holiday. I think everyone is, you know, with countries opening up around the world, everyone wants to go to Japan, you know, Korea. And yeah, next, observe what your friends are actually spending their money on. Not so much for envy, but actually for clues on if they had extra money in their pocket, what will be the things that they will go out and buy first, and then you can make a sampling on your own. And then very common, are restaurants still filled up? You know, I mean, F&B segment has seen the highest inflation in Malaysia. Obviously, if I've only traveled to Singapore post-COVID, I think. Yeah, where else? Oh, Thailand, Phuket. Yeah, Phuket is still very, very, what I call it, mild in terms of, you know, the amount of traffic they're driving. I had a lot of Indian tourists in the airport queue. But other than that, I don't see other nationalities coming in yet into Phuket. So those are the kind of things I try to observe. You know, restaurants is a very good sign. And this one is actually pretty good. And this one you may not even need to actually go out and observe. It is actually traffic data. Now, I got this tip from a lot of analysts that I speak to because in China, where there's a zero COVID policy, and it's very difficult for them to go on the ground and access, what are the secondary tiers of data that they look at is actually traffic data. Is traffic rising in Shanghai or in Beijing, where there's very strict lockdowns? And by seeing traffic data, they can use this as a correlation to see whether the economy is actually reopening up, thriving back. And you know, one more thing that, you know, I used to do grocery shopping during the COVID lockdown, and I find this actually pretty interesting exercise. And you who knows, you guys may give it a try and find it fun. You know, what I do is I do the grocery shopping, but every time I see a promoter there, I try to talk to them. I'll ask them like things like, hey, once you started this promotion, how fast has it flown off the shelves? You know, what are the things that are, you know, you keep on seeing being restocked in the supermarket? What is very hard to clear inventory? You know, certain things that may be sitting on the shelf may come even on an expiry, but then it's still not being cleared. So when you get that, right, it gives you an indication of certain brands and certain pricing power that they have. From my opinion, and you know, if you differ, please, you know, I would love to hear them in the comments. I've never seen food prices, or actually processed food prices, actually gone down, but only gone up. The only one I observed so far, and this is based on what my wife told me, because my wife is now doing the groceries, is that palm oil, cooking oil, has actually reduced in a little bit of prices, I think because of a lot of public lashback. But most of the time, your Milo, your Nescafe, whatever products or services that you find in the grocery store, I've never seen it drop in price. So let me know in the comment section if you've seen anything. You know, it'll be interesting to see. And it really correlates back to brand and pricing power over the long term. Hope you like what you're seeing so far, and if you do give it a like, a subscription, do share it with your friends and family so that the YouTube algo can actually help grow this channel. Tip number 4 is also a favorite of mine. Why? Is because most of us, it's right in front of our noses, but we don't you know, observe it or don't take into account. So I want you to sit down now and take a piece of paper and a pen and start writing down the list of businesses or services that you can't live without, but then it's been there. And to help you along the way, I could give you some hints and guides, you know, like what are the utilities that you keep paying every month and you just can't live without? Obviously your electricity, your water, your internet telecommunication, your cellular service, right? But what are things? I know some guys are big on Astro. I know for me, I'm a very heavy Netflix user because my whole family watches it. You know, we just started on Disney Plus as well, subscription. There are other things like enough water, right? Your sewage treatment. You grumble, you said, why should I be paying this? But then you still got to pay lah. Obviously, enforcement is not so strict yet in Malaysia, but in certain countries, if you don't pay your utilities, even sewage, right, they really come and fine you, right? So what this exercise is trying to tease out is actually, hey, are there things that infrastructure or services that are hidden behind the scenes that you take for granted and may even be an opportunity for you to buy, because these are kind of like recession-proof businesses. I'll give you one example. Let's just say use Netflix, right? But Netflix doesn't have servers around the world that store all these movies to be able to stream at such a high speed over to you in your geographical location. And what do is they rely on cloud service providers like the Amazon Web Service to be able to deliver those services. So once you start digging a little bit into the value chain and you realize that come rain or shine, and in market condition cases, come bull market or bear market, these are kind of like recession proof. Yeah, maybe discretionary in nature, because if someone needs to budget and starts cutting off their Netflix subscription, that's taken for granted. That can be used as a case for arguing that it's not really recession proof. But cloud services today, if you think, let's just say Dewan Bandaraya KL, and they house their entire traffic management system not on their own servers but on a cloud provider, that's a mission critical, operational critical service. And these are kind of like hidden infrastructures because you don't tangibly see them, but it's necessary, you know, operation critical readiness kind of necessary. And unless you really sit down and think about it, most of the time it's kind of ignored because it's hidden behind the scenes. It's a B2B business. So yeah, I personally like this is because those are opportunities that most people will kind of ignore, because most investors will look at a brand, something that's more tangible, something that is in the face, there's some kind of advertising. I love to invest in B2B businesses that are mission critical, you know, but that's for me. So tip number 5. Now, this doesn't only help in your investing prowess, but also expand your social circle. Do you have any banking friends that, you know, could give you an indication of how their sector is actually doing? Now, why bank is a good bellwether to understand is because during an uptake or a turnaround of the economy, the banks are usually the first one to be able to notice, because more credit is being given out, not excessive in some way, but more credit is being given out. That means people are coming back, people are taking more, business owners, people are taking more risks to actually start expanding their business, start, you know, starting off from the ground up, you know, a startup business and all that. And the banks are at the front row seats. They will be able to tell you or to gauge whether market sentiment is good or bad in the economy, because they are the frontliners in dishing out credit and seeing money coming in if there's earnings from the company. So that's one. That's why I put them bank friends plus plus. The other one is this thing called the Consumer Confidence Index. Now, the Consumer Confidence Index is actually a survey done by, like in Malaysia, is done by MIER, which is the Malaysian Institute of Economic Research. They go around handing surveys out to a sample or select group of the population, and they will be asked questions like, you know, how do you feel about the economy? Are you spending? Are you tightening your budget? And that is another leading indicator of whether the economy on the ground is actually having a turnaround or revitalizing or actually having a downturn. And in Malaysia's case, for Q2 this year, the report was, I think, released in August, Q2 this year, there's a negative downturn, a slight downturn in the Malaysia Consumer Confidence Index. I think that was just right after the opening up in April. The effects may not have thoroughly been seen in Q2 yet, because the tourists have not been coming back to Malaysia yet. Certain countries are still on lockdown, and therefore I'm looking forward to see the report in Q3 and Q4 to gauge whether is our economy really, you know, having this turnaround. I mean, we've looked at the GDP numbers, they look good, but what do the consumers actually feel? Because then you can determine whether they are willing to spend more money. And it does coincide with the general election for Q4 this year. And you know, let's see how Malaysia will actually fare based on this MIER study. So tip number 6, and congratulations if you stayed all the way till now. This is a bonus tip of mine that I've discovered once I left my employment days, is actually trying to find a side gig or something that you can do in your spare time that actually you can monetize. It may not necessarily be a very, very hard thing. I know some of you guys would be, hey John, I don't even have time for family, I don't even have enough sleep and things like that. What I would counter would be this. Unless you plan your time carefully and you prioritize it, there's always not going to be enough time. And by doing this side income or a hustle thing, what you will come to discover is actually not just making money. You get to discover like-minded individuals, you know, people who are into this growth mindset, trying to figure out how to upskill themselves. And you may even discover something hidden within you that you never realized because you just stayed within your comfort zone, or you know, just stayed on your career. And who knows, it may even be your main thing. And what's stopping that is because you've never tried it. As a lot of most successful investors can attest to you, will be this: money is made in the bear market. When the market is red, everyone's pessimistic. That's when you swing really, really hard. And you know, Sir John Templeton, you know, right after World War II, was it? Yeah, right after World War II, he actually bought everything that actually made sense to him. Not everything made him money, but those that made him money made multiple folds. And I know some of you may be saying that, yeah, I don't have enough to go by. I only have one income, you know, it's just barely enough to have some savings. And that's why this side hustle tip for me, it's actually an underrated and often overlooked kind of tip, because this is where you can generate that extra income to deploy into the market when it is, you know, on sale. So there you go, my 5+1 bonus tip to do when you are in a market recession like this. Now remember the first 5, which is ignore your trading screen, filter out the noise. Number 3, go out and observe. It's going to be fun, trust me. Number 4, don't ignore the hidden goods and services, the utilities and the infrastructure behind it. You have to pay even and use, even though unwittingly. And number 5, make bank friends and statistics your friends. Now, the consumer confidence index, like I told you earlier. And last but not least, find a side hustle, generate more income so that you can plow it back into investments, and you'll be thankful of your younger self 10 years from today. So good luck in your investing journey, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.